With regards to the first one, or the first type of blood, the hayd is understandable. Something that comes to all of the banat of Bani Adam, and it has a certain amount of time, and the woman usually knows when it starts and when it finishes. This hayd has certain characteristics.
العلم أشراف مطلوب وطالبه لله أكرام من يمشي على قدمه. العلم نور مبين يستضيء به أهل السعادات والجهال في الظلم.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا. من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له. وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله. أما بعد. Without looking back at your notes, what was the last chapter we took? Or the last two chapters we took? Wudu and Tayammum. Ghusl and Tayammum. How many things did we say necessitate al-ghusl? Things that make ghusl wajib. Naam. Janaba. Hayd al-nifas. طيب. طيب, mashallah. Ahsanti. What's the evidence for the kafir entering into Islam having to have ghusl, make ghusl? That's the hukum. Sah. That's the hukum. The ruling is that it is wajib. If a kafir enters into Islam, they should perform ghusl. That's the hukum. What is the evidence, the dalil? Sah. And the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam commanded him to perform ghusl. طيب, ahsant. If a person wakes up and he finds his bed wet, what should he do? Or what should she do? And now the wet dream. We mentioned different ahwal, different situations, scenarios.
There's 4 different situations.
Four different situations. صح. In that case, it's what, wajib to perform ghusl?
Yes.
طيب.
Second one is that if they don't remember if they had a dream or not, but they are sure that they can see it in many.
طيب.
Description. And then it's vital also to make ghusl.
طيب.
And the second is that.
Third one.
The third is that they remember they had a dream, but they don't find any witness. And then.
What's the ruling on that one?
They don't have to do ghusl.
طيب. But they? What should they do? طيب, what's your name? What? جزاك الله خير. غسل يوم الجمعة. What's the ruling on غسل يوم الجمعة? حرام, sunnah, mustahab, makruh, wajib. Wajib, based on? محترم. طيب. So everyone agrees with him that it's wajib, huh? It's sunnah as well. Ahsant. That is the evidence, like for example that hadith of Umar and Uthman radiallahu anhu. Both sets of scholars who are upon different opinions, they use it as evidence. Why is that? The ones that say it's wajib, they say that Uthman radiallahu anhu, that Umar radiallahu anhu stopped the whole khutbah in order to rebuke Uthman radiallahu anhu for not making ghusl. The other set of scholars that say it's not wajib, it's a sunnah or mustahab, they say that Uthman radiallahu anhu, بقدر جلالته, knowing his status in Islam, Dhun Nurayn, is from one of those companions, from the companions who have been promised paradise. He wouldn't have come to the masjid without making a ghusl if it was wajib. One hadith, two sets of scholars, both using that as an evidence. And that shows a mas'ala I mentioned to you some time ago in the other book, Shurut al-Salah wa Arkanuha, which is that when you hear ikhtalaf al-ulama, the scholars have differed in 2 opinions, 3 opinions, it isn't necessarily because there's a clear-cut hadith, or it isn't because they are opposing the verse from the Quran, a verse from the Quran, or from the Sunnah, hadith from the Sunnah. Like it's the understanding. It goes back to the understanding of a certain text, of a certain hadith. So you find 2 scholars debating over a certain issue. One uses a hadith as proof. The other one says, la, the hadith that you've used doesn't prove or even direct or even point towards the issue that you're referring to. So just because someone mentions a hadith or verses, it doesn't mean that the evidence is in line with the mas'ala or the issue that they want to prove. Like I've said on many occasions, if 2 people are having a debate over salah, is it wajib or not? If one of them says, no, salah is wajib, the other says, what's the dalil? Because wa'atu zakah. Wa'atu az-zakah. And establish or pay the zakah. The person has mentioned an evidence from the Quran, sah? The Quran is mutawatir. You can't say that this hadith or this verse is da'if, or it's in Sunnah ibn Majah or Nisa'i, so it's da'if. It's in the Mus'haf, it's an ayah from Kitabillah, min Kitabillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like in the verse that he has mentioned, is it a proof for this specific mas'ala? La. طيب. Today inshallah we'll start with Bab al-Hayd. Bab al-Hayd. Bab al-Hayd is a really important chapter. A very important chapter. And as we're studying it, the brothers may find it difficult to understand and to comprehend. And that's understandable. And the sisters may find it easy to understand and easy to comprehend. I remember some time ago a student asked Sheikh Fawzan, Hafidahullah, it was in Kitab al-Muntaqa or Umdat al-Fiqh, one of the 2. He wrote a question saying, Sheikh, this chapter is really bad. It's not bad, it's really difficult. It's really difficult, yani. And the Sheikh said, what should we do, yani? It's difficult, what should we do? Leave it alone? And it's not possible to leave it alone. Like, it's a really important topic. And if you look in any book of fiqh, you will find Bab al-Hayd under Kitab al-Tahara, which shows the importance of it. And what else shows you the importance of it is that a woman's salah isn't accepted if she is on hayd. A woman's salah is not accepted if she is on hayd. So even if she fasts and she prays, she'll be sinning for doing so. طيب. As for istihada, as we shall see, damul istihada, she must pray and fast. So differentiating between the 2 is very important. How to differentiate between the 2. طيب. Also, when does hayd start? When does hayd finish? All of these issues are talked about in the chapter in the Bab of Hayd. There are some people who degrade the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah and call them names by saying Ulama al-Hayd wal-Nifas, Ulama al-Hayd wal-Nifas, or Ulama Qada al-Hajah, the scholars of Hayd and Nifas. and the scholars of answering the call of nature or qada al-haja. The reason is because the scholars explain these issues in depth. And when they're saying that ulama al-hayd wal nifas, they're referring to Imam al-Shafi'i rahmatullahi alayhi, Imam Ahmed, Imam Abu Hanifa, Imam Malik, Sufyan al-Thawri, all of the Salaf, and in our times Imam al-Bani, Ibn Uthaymin, Ibn Baz, Al-Fawzan, Al-Haydan, كلهم. They are referring to them. And even before them, they are referring to the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. In these ahadith that we shall see, who is the one that is directing the women, or telling the women, or giving the women fatwa on what to do? It's the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So if they're saying ulama hayd wal nifas, فهذا النبي حيض والنفاس. طيب, above the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam, al-hayd talked about where? In the Quran. فاعتزلوا النساء يسألونك عن المحيض قل هو أذى فاعتزلوا النساء. Mentioned in the Quran, in the kitab of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So when they say ulama hayd wal nifas, they're not only referring to the scholars rahmatullahi alayhim ajma'in, like in reality that is mocking and that is istihza' of the sharia. And Shaykh Fawzan hafidhahullah says that can actually lead them into kufr. That can lead them into kufr, into disbelief. قُلْ أَبِاللَّهِ وَآيَاتِهِ وَرَسُولِ كُنْتُمْ تَسْتَهْزِئُونَ. Mocking, was it Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala or His Messenger or His verses that you were mocking? لَا تَعْتَذِرُوا قَدْ كَفَرْتُمْ بَعْدَ إِيمَانِكُمْ. Do not make excuses, for verily you have disbelieved after your iman. The verse was revealed upon who? Upon a group of people who were with the companions, Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim, in Ghazwat al-Tabuk, I believe it was. And they said the Sahaba were cowards, and they eat a lot, and so on. And then one of the companions heard them talking about the companions in this manner, and he said, verily you are munafiq, and I'm going to go to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam and tell him. And that companion, by the time he'd reached the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the revelation had come down already. And then these munafiqeen, they came running to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, trying to make excuses, and then the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, لا تعتذروا قد كفرتم بعد إيمانكم. So when we find people abusing and accusing our scholars of being ulama hayd wal nifas, firstly, they're sinning for it. Secondly, it's not aib to be teaching about hayd wal nifas. To be teaching about hayd wal nifas. And the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam talked about it. Lakin, there is a greater goal that they are trying to achieve, which is what? Divert the people from the real scholars. Once you divert the people from the real scholars, lazim, people have to go back to a marja', a reference. They need to have source. So if you say Fawzan's alim hayd wal nifas, Ibn Baz hayd wal nifas, Ibn Uthaymin hayd wal nifas, people are going to put them to one side. They're going to go to those people who are not from ulama al-hayd wal nifas, according to them. So once they divert the scholars from, or once they divert the people from the scholars of Ahl-Sunnah, these people will automatically be diverted to, or the awam, or the common folk will be diverted to people who are not worthy of being called students of knowledge, let alone being called ulama. And you find some people saying, from Masail al-Hayd wal Nifas was Zakah, was Salah, you can ask Albani, you can ask Ibn Uthaymin, you can ask Ibn Baz rahmatullahi alayhi majma'in. But when it comes to Masail al-Jihad, you should ask the ulama of jihad. You should ask the ulama of jihad. طيب من هم علماء الجهاد؟ Jihad is a hukum shari'i. It's a ibadah from the sharia of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it only comes after hayd. Look in your book. So it's not possible for a person to be a alim of jihad unless he studied Kitab al-Salah, unless he studied Kitab al-Tahara, unless he studied Kitab al-Zakah. طيب. According to which intellect allows me to not to ask Shaykh Al-Bani about Masail al-Hayd wal-Nifas, and to ask Al-Bani about Masail Ibn Uthaymin about Masail al-Hayd wal-Nifas, and Ibn Baz, and Al-Fawzan, and Al-Haydan, and other than them. What intellect allows me to ask them about Hayd wal-Nifas, lakin makes it haram for me to ask them about jihad? طيب, which one of those is more important? Which one of these two ibadat? Al-jihad fi sabilillah or ahkam al-hayd? Which one is more important? لا شك أحكام الحيض. Jihad is not from the أركان الخمسة. Ibn Umar رضي الله عنه says بني الإسلام على خمس. From them was Siyam Ramadan, fasting Ramadan. From them was the second one, as-Salah, يعني the second pillar. From them Hajj and Zakah. They came after what? Or they come after what? As-Salah. As-Salah being what? The second pillar of Al-Islam. To the extent that the scholars rahmatullah alayhim ajma'in say that a person that does, for the one that doesn't pray is a kafir. Tariq as-Salah kafir. The one that doesn't pray is a kafir. There's no point in him fasting because he's a kafir aslan. طيب. If you look in the books of fiqh, will you find طبعا Salah is connected to Hayd. If you look in the books of fiqh, you won't find the scholars saying that the one that leaves off jihad is a kafir. Ibhathu, search, the seventh pillar of Islam. Lakin the intent of these individuals or these people or these groups is to divert people away from the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah. طيب, the scholars that I've been mentioning now, not a single one of them is under 70. Not a single one of them is under 70. And in general, when you want to go back to a person who's a professor or a specialist in his field, the older he is and the longer he's been in that department, the more trustworthy he is, more often than not. So even for Masail al-Jihad, for argument's sake, why would I want to refer back to a person who's 40-year-old, a 40-year-old, a 50-year-old, when I can refer back to an 80, 90-year-old who's been through so many different fitan, who's witnessed so many different fitan that the Muslims have been through, to the extent that in the late 80s, in the early 90s, people will be phoning Ibn Uthaymin on his own, Al-Bani on his own, and Ibn Baz on his own, regarding qital, jihad and so on. And every single one of these scholars would give them a fatwa that is exactly the same as the other fatwa. The same fatwa. And the reason I'm mentioning this, because it's an important topic in our days. You'll find it everywhere. People saying that if you want to look into the ulama of jihad, look into those who are in prison. As if going into prison is a tazkiyah of its own. La. Look in the Quran and in the Sunnah. You won't find, or in the aqwal of the Salaf, you won't find that going into prison is a tazkiyah, is a tazkiyah. It's not an appraisal. Going into prison, Allahu A'lam why this person, maybe he was a criminal put into prison. Allahu A'lam why he was put into prison. Like in being put into prison isn't a sign of a person being a righteous scholar. Just like a person walking on water isn't a sign that he's a wali or he's from the awliya of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Like the mi'yar or the criterion or the what differentiates between people is their iman, their taqwa and their knowledge. That's what differentiates between people, between scholars. So when you find someone that doesn't read Arabic giving a fatwa on jihad, Allahu A'lam where they get their text from, where they get the evidence from. Because the Quran was revealed in Arabic. The Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam spoke. طيب, باب الحيض. قال الشيخ عبد الرحمن السعدي رحمة الله عليه: والأصل في الدم الذي يصيب المرأة أنه حيض بلا حد لسنه ولا قدره ولا تكرره إلا إذا أطبق الدم على المرأة أو صار لا ينقطع عنها إلا يسيرا فإنها تصير مستحاضة. طيب, هذا الشيخ رحمة الله عليه starts off with a general principle. والأصل في الدم, and the origin of the asl or the default ruling of all of the blood that comes out of the private parts of the woman is hayd. That is a general قاعدة. والأصل في الدم الذي يصيب المرأة أنه حيض. There are three types of blood that can come out of the private parts of the woman. The first one is dam al-hayd. Second one is dam al-nifas. And the third one is dam al-istihada. The first one is dam al-hayd, menses blood. The second one, dam al-nifas, postnatal bleeding. And that comes out when a woman gives birth. For a certain period of time, blood comes out of her private parts. The third one, dam al-istihada. Dam al-istihada can be translated as abnormal bleeding or irregular bleeding. Abnormal bleeding or irregular bleeding. The Shaykh Rahmatullah alayhi talks about dam al-hayd and dam al-mustahada or dam al-istihada. Like Rahmatullah alayhi, he doesn't mention the middle one, dam al-nifas. Like we'll briefly go over it inshallah. So the Shaykh says, وَالْأَصْلُ فِي الدَّمِ الَّذِي يُصِيبُ الْمَرْأَةَ أَنَّهُ حَيْض. That's the first issue that the Shaykh mentions. That's the first principle. So if a woman sees a hayd, طبعا has its cycle. It comes during a certain time of the month. It comes for a certain duration for every single month. For example, a woman may get her hayd on the 1st of every single month up until about the 7th. Or she may get it from the 15th till about the 22nd. For about 7 days. So in terms of when it comes and in terms of the duration, in many cases there's a set amount. Like in one of the things that makes Bab al-Hayd difficult to perfect is that every single woman is different. Every single woman is different. And the time that her hayd comes can differ due to what she's going through at that particular time. For example, if she lifts heavy machinery or heavy cartons or anything like that, it may be a reason for her hayd to come. Also, if she does a lot of work or a lot of walking, like in Hajj, for example, where the Hujjaj are expected to walk for long periods of time, it may be a cause for her hayd to come earlier than expected. Like in the general principle is that every woman knows herself and what time she usually gets her hayd and what time she finishes her hayd. There's understanding the mas'ala, understanding it and being able to picture it and being able to give a ruling. You guys are all capable of that. Like as for the actual dam, as for the actual hayd, the coming of it and when it leaves and so on, only a woman can understand that. That's why when a woman has a question to do with hayd and nifas, she has to clearly explain it to the person that she is asking. طيب. That is the first issue that the Shaykh mentions, rahmatullah alayhi. The second one is where the Shaykh says, بِلَا حَدٍّ لِسِنِّهِ. The second issue is that there is no specific age for the hayd to come. There is no specific age for the hayd to come. That's according to Imam as-Sa'di rahmatullahi alayhi and according to many scholars, which is the stronger opinion. If you look into the books of the fuqaha, kutub al-fiqh, you'll find that they say that the earliest time a woman can see menstrual blood is 9 years old. So that's an opinion from amongst the opinions, that the earliest age that they can receive hayd or they can see hayd is 9 years old. Based on the hadith of Aisha radiallahu anha, or the athar or the narration of Aisha, إذا بلغت المرأة 9 سنين فهي امرأة. If the woman, or if the small girl, reaches 9 years old, she is a woman, meaning she has reached puberty. Also, they say that is the youngest that a person has witnessed, that we've actually come through. The youngest that they've actually seen is 9 years old. Lakin, when you look at the Quran and the Sunnah, the word hayd has been mentioned in general, general. It hasn't been connected to a specific age. If you look at Surah Al-Talaq, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَّائِي يَئِسْنَ مِنَ الْمَحِيدِ مِن نِسَائِكُمْ إِنْ اغْتَبْتُمْ فَعِدَّتُهُنَّ 3 أشهر وَلَّائِي لَمْ يَحِدْنَ. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala was talking about the iddah, the waiting period for the divorced woman, He mentioned that for those who have not reached, for those who are, or who do not receive hayd due to old age, or due to them being young, then their waiting period is 3 months. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala didn't specify a certain age. He connected the hukum with hayd. وَلَّائِي يَئِسْنَ مِنَ الْمَحِيدِ. Those who have given up on hayd, meaning that will not see hayd. Because if a woman reaches a certain age, like we shall see, she doesn't receive hayd. She doesn't get hayd every month. So the stronger opinion is there isn't a specific age to when a woman can get menstrual blood. Like in 9 سنين, sometimes the scholars say it is ghalib. In a lot of cases, 9 years is the age that a woman can receive hayd. She can receive it at 10, 11, 12 and so on. But she can also receive it at 8. The only problem, if we say that 9 is the earliest that they can see hayd, it means that if she sees hayd at the age of 8 and it has all the characteristics of hayd, the colour, the smell and so on, we can't say that that is hayd. That is the problem if we say, or the ishkal that we will face if we say that it is, or the earliest age is 9. So leaving it general is better. As soon as the woman sees hayd, then she should observe all of the ahkam, or all of the rulings related to hayd. Like when you see that the scholar is saying that the earliest age that a woman can see is 9 years old, it's based on istiqra' wa tatabbu'. It's based upon what they've been asked or what they've witnessed. And it's not something new. Even for masail, you find a lot of masail like that. Masail hayd, masail haml, pregnancy. What is the longest period for a woman to be pregnant? The scholars say 4 years. The Hanafi, the Shafi'iyya, the Hanabila, they say 4 years is أكثر مدة الحمل. The longest a woman can be pregnant for. And what do they use as evidence? What they've witnessed. Likewise, with regards to inheritance, for example. or if a woman's husband has gone missing and she cannot find him, what should she do? How long should she wait until going to the Hakim, going to the Qadi to get a divorce? How long would you say? Yani you've got a wife, her husband goes missing all of a sudden. There isn't any war or nothing going on, because if he's in war, you can understand that he's been killed. Again, there isn't war or anything going on. And no disaster has happened as of recently. Therefore he leaves the house and he goes missing. How long would you say that she has to wait for? She can't wait 10 years, taban. How long would you say she has to wait for? No, if he dies, it's 4 months and 10 months, 4 months and 10 days if he dies. But this one, you don't know if he's dead, he's gone missing. Huh? How long? Difference of opinion. Some scholars say that she should come to the Hakim maybe after 9 months, maybe after a year. Some say 4 years. She should wait 4 years. What do they base it upon? 4 years. Huh? Experience. Hassan. Experience. And there was a man who went missing for 4 years. During the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, when he was a Khalifa, there was a man, he left his masjid, he left his house. He went to go to the masjid, he left his house. And then jinn took him, they kidnapped him. He was kidnapped by jinn. It's authentic narration. You got on Qaleel, you can look back to it. Ibn Albani rahmatullah alayhi, a lot of scholars say it's sahih. During the time of Umar radiallahu anhu, this man left his house, went to the masjid, or tried to go to the masjid. He was kidnapped by jinn on the way. And he didn't come back, obviously. His wife came to Umar radiallahu anhu, informing him after a certain period of time. Then he told her to go back, wait a year. Go back. Eventually, when she waited 4 years, he gave her talaq, or fasakh, not talaq, but fasakh, which is when you nullify the aqd. طيب. 4 years later, the guy comes back all of a sudden, comes to Umar radiallahu anhu, and he explains what had happened. So Umar has a go at him and says, "What are you talking about? You come back 4 years later and you want to go back to your house? Where have you been?" The guy goes, "I was kidnapped by jinn." He's kidnapped by jinn. So Umar thought he was joking. Like after talking to him, he said, "Tayyib, tell me about the jinn." So he was kidnapped by kuffar jinn that were non-Muslims. And there was a war between the jinn, the Muslimin, the mu'mineen, and the kuffar. This guy obviously was kept hostage with the kuffar. Then the mu'minun, after 4 years, they had jihad with the kuffar, and they won the battle, the jinn of the mu'mineen. Then they took him hostage as well. Like when they realized that he's a Muslim, they said to him, we can't keep you hostage, you're a Muslim. So we'll give you 2 choices. Either stay with us and we honor you and you in the karama and so on, or you can go back to your people, to the humans. Which one do you prefer? He goes, I want to go back to the humans. And then they brought him back to his location, or wherever it was that he was, Medina, Medina. And that's authentic narration. So he was missing for 4 years. And Umar asked, "What did they used to feed you?" He said, "They used to give me asir and food." That's what they used to give him to eat. Ala kulli hal, when the scholars are talking about this specific issue, with regards to the widow, how long she should wait, they say 4 years. And the reason they say that is because that is what has been witnessed. And that is the fatwa that Umar radiallahu anhu gave. Lakin it is not a dalil in of itself. بِلَا حَدٍّ لِسِنِّهِ. So there's no specific age that it can start. وَلَا قَدْرِهِ. Nor with regards to the amount. Now the amount can be of 2 things. It can be the amount of days that haid lasts, There's no specific amount or duration to how long it can last. It can last for 7 days, it can last for 10 days, it can last for 4 days, it can last for 1 day. So there's no specific amount to how long it can last. And there isn't a specific amount to the amount of blood that comes out. There isn't a specific amount to say that if it's more than 10 litres then it is hayd, and if it's less than 10 litres it is not hayd. There is no amount to in terms of the quantity of the hayd. So both of these come under وَلَا قَدْرِهِ وَلَا تَكَرُّرِهِ. Also with regards to coming back, repetition, it isn't necessary that for a woman to get her hayd, like for example if we said her hayd comes at the 7th of every month to the 14th, she must get that for every single month. As long as she's had it for 1 month, then that is her regular hayd. And after a few times, she'll see that for every single month it comes roughly around the same time. Roughly around the same time, and also lasts for the same duration. That is with regards to hayd. طيب. أقل مدة we've talked about, the least amount of hayd that a woman can get, or the youngest age that a woman can get, we've talked about, which is what? 9. 9, huh? The Shaykh says بلا حد لسنه. There is no specific age to. I don't expect you guys to understand exactly what I'm saying. Lakin, we said that there is no specific age for the woman to receive hayd, to see her hayd. There isn't a specific age. She can see it at 8, just like she can see it at 10. She may not see it at 12, lakin sees it at 13, 14. Lakin the ibra, the criterion, and what the hukum, the ruling is based upon is what? The actual hayd, the actual blood. طيب. As for the longest period of time that a woman can get hayd, there isn't a specific had or specific amount to how long she can receive the hayd. Some women can get it for 10 days, 11 days, 12 days, some up to 15. And the scholars do mention in the books of fiqh that the longest amount that they can possibly get it is 15 days. Like in the ghalib, or in general, most women get it for about 6 or 7 days. As we shall see in the hadith in which the Messenger ﷺ was asked about the hayd, فَتَحَيَّدِ سِتَّةَ أَيَّامٍ أو سَبْعَةَ أَيَّامٍ. When she didn't know how to, when she'd forgotten, or the lady that forgot how many days she used to experience her hayd, the Messenger ﷺ said to her, sit for 6 days or 7 days, because that is the ghalib. Most women, their hayd lasts for about 6 or 7 days. طيب. There are certain things we talked about in the last lesson as well, what the woman on going through menstrual blood isn't allowed to go through, and what she is allowed to do. From them is that a woman is allowed to use tablets or medicines which prevent or delay her hayd. So for example, during the month of Ramadan, some women, they know they're going to get their hayd during a certain amount of, and during a certain time of that month. Like if they take these tablets, then their hayd will be delayed for a certain period of time. That is permissible to do. For example, if she wants to perform Hajj, Umrah, fast during the month of Ramadan, she's allowed to use things that, or medicines or tablets, pills that prevent her hayd from coming at its expected time. Lakin on the condition that it doesn't have any side effects. It doesn't have any side effects. A lot of these pills, they do have side effects. Like, and they're not harmful side effects. When we say as long as they don't have side effects, it means they don't have harmful side effects. So you'll find that if a woman uses pills to delay her haid, you'll find in the following few months, in the 4 months or 5 months after taking the tablet or that pill, her haid isn't as consistent as it was before. She may get it for 5 days and it stops. She may not get it for 2 months. She may get it for during different times, or times that were different to, or that are different to the times that she used to get it before taking these tablets. Lakin in general, it's permissible for her to use. طيب, that leads on to another question which a person may ask, is using or taking tablets to prevent pregnancy. What is the ruling on taking tablets to prevent pregnancy? That's a question I'm asking you. In any gathering, right? In any gathering, you will find that as soon as people get to Bab al-Hayd al-Nifas, the Tulab al-Ilm, the students, the brothers, they're غير متفاعلين, they're like, because they can't comprehend some of the things that have been mentioned. طيب, Muhammad. Based on?
I remember there's a hadith where, or I think there's a ayat that the companions, they used to practice an action where they used to prevent pregnancy from occurring, and it was allowed for them to do so.
During the time of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam. طيب, what about using pills to prevent pregnancy? Since we're talking about pills. طيب, Muhammad.
There's the author from the Sahabas, كنا نحزن والقرآن ينزل.
نعم. That's, yeah, صح. So it's permissible, huh? Lakin azl is different to using tablets. Fahad. It is different to that method. It is different to that method.
When you're doing, are you talking about the regular pill, or is it the pill the morning after pill?
Like the regular pill, or the morning after pill, same thing. The only difference is that the regular pill you take it consistently. Like in the morning after pill, it's called the morning after.
The morning after, there may be a chance that you might be. That's why I was different chance. Isn't that there should be a different chance, because with that method that Sahaba to do, that chance girl was definitely not going to get pregnant. But with the morning after pill, there's a chance that the woman might become pregnant.
No, not necessarily. Not necessarily. Even the method that the companions used to use, that's risky. It's not. It doesn't mean because they do that, it's 100%. اختلف العلماء. If the goal is the same, if the aim is the same, صحيح. طيب. During the time of the companions رضوان الله عليهم, كنا نعزل, as the Prophet said, صح? That was a method for them to avoid pregnancy. طيب. What was the intent? What was the intent? To avoid pregnancy. What's the intent of the pills? Huh? Same. So the intent is there. So it's only understandable that the hukum is going to be the same. And in general, you'll find that al-asl fil ashya'i al-ibaha. The asl for ashya is al-ibaha. Lakin if a person is not having children due to fear of poverty, then in that case it becomes what? Haram. It becomes haram. If a person avoids having children without having a legitimate reason or a valid reason, then it becomes makruh. And the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam قال إني مكاثر بكم الأمم. I'm going to boast with the other ummah with regards to your amount and the kimiyya or the quantity of my ummah. تزوج الودود الولود. Marry those women that love their husbands and that give birth a lot. Wulud, that give birth a lot. طيب, if a person has a valid excuse, then it becomes mubah. Then it becomes mubah. So it can be haram, makruh, or mubah, permissible. Each depending on the intention. Each depending on the intention. طيب. With regards to the haid, questions after now. Questions after. Like, write them down so you don't forget. With regards to the haid, she's allowed to stay in the masjid. A haid is allowed to stay in the masjid. Due to the lack of dalil preventing them from staying in the masjid. As for what the fuqaha say that the masjid will become dirty and so on, in nowadays that's not picturable. You can't. It's hard to picture that, or it's hard for that to happen. Likewise, even in days of old, if a person uses the right equipment to prevent the blood from reaching the masjid, then it becomes halal for them to use. And she isn't the same as the person on janaba. We said with the person that's on janaba, they're not allowed to stay in the masjid. And if they do want to stay in the masjid, they should perform wudu, which lessens the heaviness or the heftiness of janaba. And the companions used to do that. Ridwanullahi ta'ala alayhim. طيب, with regards to that last issue, the haid, the haml, or taking the medicine or pills, that's with regards to if the husband gives her permission to do so. If the husband gives her permission to take these tablets. Just like the method that you mentioned earlier on, that method that you mentioned, that the companions Ridwanullahi alayhim used to practice, the man cannot practice that except with the permission of his wife. Vice versa. She can't take the pills without having his permission and him being pleased with it. And he can't do that method, come out before he ejaculates, except with the permission of the wife. طبعا also, with regards to the haid, it's haram to have intercourse with her. Allah Jalla wa Ala says, فَاعْتَزِلُوهُنَّ وَلَا تَقْرَبُوهُنَّ حَتَّى يَطْهُرْنَ. Do not go near them, do not perform intercourse, حَتَّى يَطْهُرْنَ. فَإِذَا تَطَهَّرْنَ فَأْتُوهُنَّ مِنْ حَيْثُ أَمَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ. And if they have or perform tatahhur, have their ghusl, then you are free to do that which you wish. So the Jumhur al-Ulama, they say it's haram to have sexual relations before the ghusl. Two different issues. The finishing of the haid and ghusl, they're not necessarily connected. For example, if a woman becomes, her haid finishes just before Fajr, she can start her fasting straight away, immediately. When the time of suhoor ends, she can start her siyam, fasting, without having ghusl. Like when it comes to intercourse, it's wajib that a person has, or she performs ghusl before the husband can have intercourse. Like during the haid, it's permissible to do everything except for jima'. The Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Isna'u kulla shay illa al-nikah." Al-nikah bima'na al-jima'. Al-nikah here in this hadith, "Isna'u kulla shay." Do everything illa al-nikah, except for nikah. Yani you're allowed to do everything except for jima'. Some of the scholars say that if a person does perform or have intercourse, have relations with his wife while she is going through haid, that he should pay dinar as a kafara. Like in all of the hadith, the scholars mention that all of the hadith relating to it, it's a specific hadith of Ibn Abbas, like in all of the narrations specifying the paying of a dinar or nisful dinar or rubu'u dinar, they're not affirm, they're not authentically attributed to the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, meaning they're not sahih, lakin they're mawquf. They are mawquf on Ibn Abbas. What is mawquf? It stops on a companion. طيب. It stops on a companion, meaning it is not a hadith, lakin it stops on a companion. Lakin likewise the scholars say it's a sunnah to also pay sadaqah if a man does do that. If a man does do that, lakin it is haram and it's wajib if a person knows that he has got strong sexual desires, that he should do his best to stay away from his wife during her haid. طيب. That's with regards to haid. There are many issues that the scholars talk about in fiqh, lakin these are the issues that the Shaykh rahmatullah alayhi, Imam al-Sa'di rahmatullah alayhi mentions. And then he says إذا أطبق الدم على المرأة أو صار لا ينقطع عنها إلا يسيرا فإنها تصير مستحاضة. So we've now completed the first one. The Shaykh now is going to go on to the second type, which is dam al-istihada. Once you understand that haid has a certain amount of time, certain duration, it starts at a certain time, we also understand, or you also need to understand that a woman can experience irregular bleeding, abnormal bleeding, which comes during, or it comes out during the other part of the month. So for example, if she was to receive, she usually gets her haid from the 1st to the 7th. This abnormal bleeding can come from the 8th, 10th, and last 10 days, 15 days, 20 days, a month, 2 months. To the extent that she doesn't know if it's haid or if it's istihada. And the difference between the two, in terms of ruling, in terms of the attributes or the characteristics, is very different. With regards to the ruling, if a woman is on haid, طبعا she can't pray, she can't fast, she can't have sexual relations. Like with istihada, the abnormal bleeding, she has to pray, she has to fast, and she can have sexual relations if it doesn't harm her. With the salah, she has to obviously perform wudu for the entering of every salah. The time that the salah enters, she has to perform wudu and then carry on. Even if the blood carries on dripping, then she can carry on. So the haid has its time and it has its ruling. Istihada also has its ruling. Also with regards to the colour, it varies. The haid is dark red or thick red, almost becoming brown or black, dark brown or black. Lakin the dam al-istihada is light red. The dam al-haid, it has an odour, a foul smell. Lakin dam al-istihada, it doesn't have such a smell. Dam al-haid, before it happens, the woman can feel that her haid is coming on. She gets backache and so on, cramps in the belly and so on. So for example, she knows that if she's getting certain feelings, certain pains in her body, she knows that her haid is going to start tomorrow or the day after, her haid is near. Like in istihada, it doesn't have that. Istihada doesn't have any specific pain, cramps, or anything of the like. طيب. So what should the mustahada do? The Shaykh says, أو صار لا ينقطع عنها إلا يسيرا. If a woman continuously sees blood without any stopping, or even if it does stop, it stops for only a day or two, what should she do? The Shaykh rahmatullah alayhi says, فإنها تصير مستحاضة. In that case, she becomes what is called a mustahada. woman who's going through dam al-istihada, which is the third one. فقد أمرها النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم. The Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم commanded her أن تجلس عادتها. The Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم commanded her to sit, meaning to count hayd as her عادة. We shall see what عادة means. فإن لم يكن لها عادة, if she doesn't have an عادة, فإلى تمييزها. If she doesn't have a عادة means she knows she gets her hayd from the 1st to the 7th of every month, and it lasts for 7 days. She knows when she gets it, and she knows how long it lasts for. The Shaykh says, يرحمك, if she does have a عادة, she has to تجلس عادتها. Where the problem now that we have is that she's getting blood constantly. Whereas with hayd, 1st to the 7th, and then she's free of any blood until the next month. And then when the next month comes, the 1st to the 7th blood, she sees the menstruous blood. It stops. And then from the 8th onwards to the end of the month, it's clear. Likewise. Like with hayd, the problem that we have here is that the blood is consistent. It doesn't stop. So the Shaykh rahmatullah alayhi says that the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam commanded her أن تجلس عادتها. So she has to count the days that she originally, in the past, when she wasn't going through istihada or abnormal bleeding, the days that she used to have her hayd. فإلى تمييزها. If she doesn't have that, فإن لم يكن لها عادة. If she doesn't have a عادة, if she doesn't have a set amount of days that she used to count as her hayd or have hayd for, فإلى تمييزها. Then she should try differentiating between the types of blood. How can she differentiate? By using the characteristics that we just mentioned. Looking at the blood. So during the days that it is thick, dark, has its smell, she counts those days as hayd. And the days that it's red and doesn't have a smell, that she counts that as istihada. Then the Shaykh rahmatullah alayhi goes on to say, فَإِن لَمْ يَكُنْ لَهَا تَمْيِيزٌ. We'll come back to these more in detail. If she doesn't have tamyiz, meaning she can't differentiate between which blood is which. Because the colour that I've just mentioned, or the smell and so on, it's ghalib in most cases. There can be a case where the whole blood is red. All of the blood is black. And you can't differentiate. It may be difficult to differentiate between the two types of blood. فإلى عادة نعم. So if she doesn't have tamyiz, then she should go to the عادة إلى عادة النساء الغالبة. She should go to the عادة, or the amount of days that the women in her vicinity, in her community, in her family, the amount of days that they have their hayd for. 6 أيام or 7. Either 6 days or 7 days. So if she doesn't have a عادة on her own, of her own, or she can't differentiate between the two, or the types of blood, then she should go back to the hayd of the women in her family, or the women in her community. Because the location that a person is has an effect on the way their body is. So if a person is at a really hot place, if the woman's at a really hot place, her hayd may come, Allahu A'lam, less regular, or it may last for less than the woman that is that is living in a cold place, for example. And that's an example. Just like when the scholars are talking about circumcision for women, they say that if a woman lives in a hot place, it's more of a sunnah to do so than if she lives in a cold place. طيب. ولا حالة لها. طيب, with regards to the first one, or the first type of blood, حيض, صح? حيض, صح? The حيض is understandable, something that comes to all of the banat of Bani Adam, and it has a certain amount of time, 6 or 7 days being the most common, and the woman usually knows when it starts and when it finishes. It has a set amount for every month. This haid has certain characteristics. Its colour is black or dark, very thick as well, has a foul smell. طيب. With regards to the ruling, the woman cannot pray, nor fast, nor have sexual relations. That is when everything is normal. And just as a side point, haid is an evidence for siha, health. If the woman gets haid, it means she's healthy. If a woman is at an age where she should get haid, and she does get haid every month, it shows that is a sign of health. She has good siha. Which is in a contradiction to istihada. Istihada is a sign of illness, where there's a vein that has become loose somewhere in her body. Likewise with haid, subhanallah, during the time of pregnancy, that haid, that blood of haid, becomes a nutrition or sustenance for the janeen, the fetus in the baby, in the woman, in the womb. That's why during pregnancy, women don't experience haid. During pregnancy, women do not experience haid, because that blood becomes stored in the womb, and it's a nutrition for, or food for, the fetus or the janeen in the womb. And then when the baby is born, it's called damun nifas, we shall see. It comes out for about 40 days straight after the wilada. Okay, damun nifas, we shall see. So that's with regards to the first type, dam al-hayd. And we've talked about all of the rulings related to, or some of the rulings related to dam al-hayd. As for dam al-istihada, it's irregular and abnormal bleeding. And this can cause confusion for women, because they won't know what to do when they do experience this type of blood. Because when she's got the haid, it's from the 1st to the 7th, for example, or from the 7th to the 14th, or so on. She knows what she has to do and when she has to do it. Like when the blood is from the 1st to the 30th, and it's difficult for her to differentiate between when it's her haid or when it's called dam al-istihada. Dam al-nifas doesn't really come into this conversation at this particular moment, or this discussion, because dam al-nifas is usually after a woman gives birth. Like in istihada, doesn't have a reason. It can come at any time, and it can come due to different reasons. طيب. Now the scholars differentiate the women into 3 types, 3 categories. If she has dam istihada, irregular bleeding, they divide her into 3 different types. We've talked about these types, like we'll talk about more now. Al-mu'tada. The mu'tada is the woman, for example, every single month for the last 5 years, 6 years, she's been getting her haid from the 1st to the 7th of every month, and it lasts for 7 days. Every single month she gets it from the 1st to the 7th, and it always lasts for 7 days. Then it goes, then the next month, then it goes, then the next month. So she knows exactly when her haid does come. Like after 5 years or 6 years, she notices, or after a certain period of time, not even years, like after a certain period of time, she notices that the blood is consistent, it just doesn't go. What should she do? The Messenger ﷺ was asked by one of the companions, Fatima bint Abi Hubaysh, who had a similar problem, dam al-istihada. So she said to the Rasul ﷺ, Ya Rasulullah, inni imra'atun istihadu fala adkhul. Ya Rasulullah, I see dam al-istihada, the third one, fala adkhul, and I do not become pure, I do not become tahir. Yani I'm constantly seeing this blood. أَفَأَدَعُ الصَّلَاةِ, should I leave the salah? Which shows that she knows if it's haid, she knows that she has to leave the salah. Lakin, because this blood is consistent, she doesn't know whether she should leave the salah or not. The Messenger ﷺ said, لا إن ذلك عرق. Verily it is a vein, or it is some sort of illness which has caused one of your veins to release blood. ولكن دعي الصلاة شوف ولكن دعي الصلاة قدر أيامي ولكن leave your salah قدر الأيام التي كنت تحيدين فيها. Verily it is only a vein and so on. لكن leave the salah for the amount of days كنت تحيدين فيها, the amount of days that you used to go through your haid. So the Messenger ﷺ referred her back to what? To the amount of days that she used to get her haid. ثم اغتسلي وصلي, and then after that perform ghusl and then pray. And that is the lafz of Imam al-Bukhari rahmatullah alayhi. طيب. The understanding of this hadith is the example that we mentioned earlier, a woman that was getting her blood from the 1st to the 7th of every month. So she knows exactly when it comes and roughly when it finishes. And there are signs طبعا for when it does finish. Women know those signs for when it does finish. طيب. So she gets it from the 1st to the 7th roughly of every single month. And she continues for a certain period of time, a year or so, like that. And then she sees blood consistently, it just doesn't go away. What should she do? She should implement this hadith, Fatima bint Abi Hubaysh, where the Messenger ﷺ said to her, sit, yani count your haid for the amount of days, or leave off the salah for the amount of days that you used to leave your haid for, or that you used to have your haid for. So in this case, she has to leave it for how many days? 7 days. We said what? From the 1st to the 7th. Likewise, if it was from the 1st to the 5th, and that was her regular haid, then later on, if she does get dam al-istihada, and she remembers that it was 5 days or 6 days, whatever, then she has to go back to that amount. So for example, if she sees consistent blood, what does she do? From the 1st to the 5th, or from the 1st to the 6th, or from the 1st to the 7th, however, or from the 1st to the 8th, however many days her haid was, she should now include these days as her haid. And then on the 8th day, perform ghusl and carry on with the salah, carry on with the siyam, and so on. And from that point onwards, from the 8th to the end of the month, she is considered mustahada. She is considered that she's going through dam al-istihada, abnormal, irregular bleeding. طيب. That's with regards to the first one. The second type is al-mubtada', the one that starts her haid and all of a sudden she sees blood that is consistent. So for example, if we say Khadija sees her haid at the age of 13, when she does see her haid at 13, at the age of 13, the blood comes out and it doesn't stop, it just continues. At the age of 13, she sees her haid, or at the age of 10, she sees her haid, and then from that point onwards, it just carries on. What is the difference between the mu'tada and the mubtadi'ah, I ask you? What I've just described, how?
The first one you mentioned was it's just abnormal.
Yeah. It's a continuation of blood, not only menses, because it may not be menses for the first or for the end of towards the end or after 7 days or whatever. It may not be hayd. Like, and the difference is that the mu'tada, the first one, she knows exactly how many days she used to receive her hayd. She knows exactly how many days she used to get her hayd for. It used to last for 6 days or 7 days or 8 days, whatever. So later on, when she does get abnormal bleeding, she can easily refer back to the amount of days, obviously if she remembers the amount of days that she used to have a hayd. Like in this mubtada'ah, she doesn't have a previous aada. She doesn't have a previous what? Aada. So she can't say my regular hayd used to come for such and such, because that's when it started for her. And unfortunately for her, at the very beginning she saw consistent blood, irregular bleeding. What should she do? The scholars mention that what she should do is try differentiating between the different types of blood. Whether she can ask her mother, her sisters, or so on. And she can go back to the characteristics that we mentioned, such as it being black, it being thick, having a distinct smell, the hayd, also having certain types of pain, cramps, back pain, a day before it comes. So when she goes through these types, or this can also apply to the woman who has had a aada, used to have an aada, lakin she's forgotten how long she used to have her hayd for. So the mubtada'a, this one, and the woman who used to have an aada, lakin she's now forgotten her aada, what she can do is, or what they should do is try using tamyiz, differentiating between the two types of blood, damul hayd and damul istihada. And they're completely different. Not only with regards to the ruling, lakin their colour, the time they come, the pain that one has and the other doesn't have, and the smell. La. Hayd, we already discussed that hayd hasn't got a specific age for it to start. It can start at 9, it can start at 8, it can start at 12 or 13. When we're talking about istihada, it's completely different to hayd. Hayd is that blood which has a certain amount of time, which has its characteristics, which hasn't got a specific age for it to start, and I'm not sure if I mentioned that it hasn't got a specific age for it to finish. Some of the fuqaha mentioned that 50 years, the last that a woman can see hayd, like she can carry on seeing up 50, 55, 56, whatever. It may happen that she sees it after 50. Just because we've witnessed 6 million women not experiencing hayd after 50, it doesn't mean we can say that every single woman or women do not generally receive hayd or get hayd after the age of 50. So dam al-hayd is that hayd which, or that blood that has specific certain times of the month, certain duration. Like in dam al-istihada is blood that is just consistent. Yes, it can be dam al-hayd, but the confusion that we have and what we're trying to work out and why the fuqaha have made it 3 different types is because you can't differentiate between these 2 types of blood, except if you use these methods that we're talking about now. So that's the mubtadi'ah. The mubtadi'ah, what she should do is try differentiating between the 2 types of blood. So on the days that she sees, damul hayd with its characteristics, she should avoid praying, avoid fasting, and so on. On the days that she sees damul istihada, she should pray, fast, and so on. طيب. As for the third one, من لا عادة لها ولا تمييز. So for example, if a woman cannot differentiate between the two types of blood, it's all red, or it's all light red, she can't differentiate between the two. Nor does it have a smell, a distinct smell, nor does she have any pain, because the pain usually comes with haid and it doesn't come with istihada. Like in this case, she doesn't have any haid. With regards to that, what she should do is sit for the amount of days, or count her haid as the amount of days that the women nearby count their haid. For example, her sisters, her mother, her aunties, the amount of days that they usually receive their haid is the amount of days that she should count her haid for. And that's based on the hadith Himna bint Jahsh rahmatullahi alayha wa radiyallahu anha, in which she said to the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, she explained to him that she gets dam al-istihada. And the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said to her, فَتَحَيِّذِي سِتَّةَ أَيَّامٍ أَوْ سَبْعَةَ أَيَّامٍ فِي عِلْمِ اللَّهِ ثُمَّ اغْتَسِلِي. So the Messenger sallallahu alayhi wa sallam commanded her to do ijtihad, to count her haid, or take her haid as 6 or 7 days. She should do ijtihad. So if she asks her mother, for example, how many days her haid is usually, and she says 7 days, and she asks her sisters, and some of them say 6 days and the others say 7 days, and she asks her aunties and the aunties say 7 days, yalla, she should count her haid as 7 days. And then she should count the rest of the month as damul istihada. So for these 7 days, she can't pray, nor can she fast. Like once these 7 days finish, then they can, or then she has to include that dam, or count that blood that comes after these 7 days as damul istihada, which means she has to pray and she has to fast, except that she has to make wudu for every salah, for the time of every salah. So as soon as the time comes in, she can perform wudu. Once she does so, she doesn't need to, if the blood does keep dripping out and coming out, she doesn't need to repeat the wudu. Just like what is called salas al-bawl. Some people, afanallahu minha, have urine just genuinely come all the time. It comes out, or they get drops of urine coming out of them. That's called salas al-bawl in the books of fiqh. So for that sort of person, what they should do is perform wudu when the time of the salah enters, or when they wish to pray, and then they can pray. So for example, if the time of dhuhr starts at 1 o'clock, and she wants to pray straight away, she can perform wudu at 1 o'clock, as soon as the time enters. Perform wudu, and she can pray her fard prayer, and she can also pray her sunan. If she comes into the masjid, she can also pray tahiyyat al-masjid, and so on. So it's the most important thing that she performs wudu when the time of salah, or that specific salah, is present, in which she wants to pray the salah. Tayyib. So for this sort of person, or the third one, she doesn't have a aada. It's not like certain days where she says, I used to get my haid for 6 days or 7 days. Because she can't remember, for whatever reason. She can't remember. What she has to do is the same as what the la tamyiz laha has to do, the one that can't differentiate between the different types of blood. Because sometimes it's not possible to differentiate. Even if she looks, it's all red. And there's nothing that differentiates the two. In that case, what she should do is see what the norm is, or what the custom is amongst her women folk, and then count those days as haid. As for when to start, then she can also start when they start. For example, if they tell her that they usually get it right in the middle of every month, she can start her haid at the middle of every month, at the 15th of every month, and carry on for 7 days. So these are the 3 ahkam, or the 3 types relating to dam al-istihada. طيب. Dam al-nifas, the 3rd type of blood. Dam al-nifas is probably the most simple one out of all of them. It has a reason, and it doesn't come before that reason. It comes, or the woman experiences dam al-hayd after wilada, after giving birth. After giving birth. As for the least amount of time, or the minimum amount of time that a woman can experience dam al-nifas, then there isn't a minimum. It can be 1 second. It can be 5 seconds. Some women don't experience postnatal bleeding. They don't experience dam al-nifas. Their baby is born, khalas. It may be odd, it may be rare, lakin it can happen. So they don't see any blood. So we can't say the least amount of blood, or the least amount of time that a woman can experience nifas is 1 day and 1 night, for example. It is, or it doesn't have a minimum. As for the maximum, the Jumhur al-Ulama are on the opinion that the maximum it lasts is up to 40 days. The maximum. It can last 30 days, 20 days, 15 days. Like in the maximum that it lasts up to is 40 days. That's based on the hadith, or the narration of the athar of Salama, where she says that the women during the ahd, or during the time of the Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they used to go through the hayd for 40 days. Some of the Shafi'iyya in their books of fiqh, they mention 60 days. Ala kulli hal, dam al-nifas, the most, or ghaliban, in most cases, it doesn't last more than 40 days. It doesn't last more than 40 days. It can be less, 30 days, 20 days, or so on. Lakin ghaliban, it doesn't go past 40 days. And during this time, طبعا the woman cannot pray. It resembles dam al-hayd with regards to its ahkam. Dam al-nifas, it resembles hayd in terms of the rulings relating to it. For verily the woman cannot pray, nor can she fast while going through dam al-nifas, nor can she have sexual relations while going through dam al-nifas. And when it does finish, she should perform ghusl, just like she performed ghusl for hayd. And then upon after that, she becomes tahir, because it only lasts for maximum 40 days, and it is connected to wilada, is connected to, or connected to birth, giving birth. These ahkam that we've mentioned in today's lesson, and those that we've mentioned in the last lesson, can be somewhat confusing. Like there's an article, or the 3-4 pages that I asked one of the students to print out, to write up. May Allah reward them. They've done so straight away. They emailed it the next day. Like I haven't had time to print it out. Like what I'll do, inshallah, I'll edit whatever needs editing, and then I'll either send it back to you via email, or I'll actually give you hard copies, inshallah. And upon that note, we finished Kitab al-Tahara. We finished Kitab al-Tahara. And Kitab al-Tahara is the first chapter or the first book in the books of fiqh. It is an introduction for as-Salah. So everything that we've studied in the past 8 weeks or so, we've been preparing ourselves for Kitab al-Salah. بني الإسلام على 5 شهادة لا إله إلا الله وأن محمد رسول الله وإقام الصلاة. The Messenger صلى الله عليه وسلم said Islam has been built upon 5. From them the shahadatain. And the second one is establishing the prayer. And if you remember at the beginning of the kitab, the Shaykh rahmatullah alayhi mentioned that Salah has shurut تتقدم عليها. It has conditions which precede it. From the most important conditions of Salah is at-tahara. That is why we've spent almost 8 weeks also on Kitab al-Tahara. That's why you find it at the beginning of every single kitab which is to do with fiqh. With regards to the conditions, some scholars start with time, like the Malikiyya. Like in most scholars, the Shafi'iyya, the Hanabila, they start with Kitab al-Tahara. So inshallah in the next lesson hopefully we'll move on to Kitab al-Salah. Now Kitab al-Salah is one of the longest kitabs in the books of fiqh. There are many different issues within the Salah. The Shaykh will start the kitab off with looking at the conditions of the Salah, the remaining conditions for the Salah. So that remainder he'll discuss in that book, Kitab al-Salah. So far we've taken how many conditions? Conditions of Salah, what are they? Shurut al-Salah. 9. Islam, Aql, Bulugh, Niyya, Satr al-Awra, Hadath al-Akbar wal-Asghar, استقبال القبلة, إزالة النجاسة, استقبال القبلة, دخول الوقت. دخول الوقت. So far we've discussed 2. الطهارة من الحدث الأكبر والأصغر, major and minor impurity. We've discussed that because we've talked about wudu, and we've talked about ghusl. We've talked about the things that necessitate ghusl. We've talked about the things that necessitate wudu. And إزالة النجاسة or إزالة النجاسات. There was a chapter which talked about the najasat, things which are najis, and how to wash them. Some of the najasat needing, or we should having been the fact that we have to wash some najasat 7 times, some najasat 3 times, some najasat there isn't a specific amount. The most important thing is, or there isn't a specific amount that we should wash. The most important thing is that this najasa is removed. So far we've talked about just these 2 conditions. At the beginning of Kitab al-Salah, the Shaykh will finish off these conditions. And they'll be easy for you, because you've already studied them in the book of Shaykh Muhammad Abdul Wahhab rahmatullah alayhi, شروط الصلاة وأركانها وواجباتها. And in general, ilm isn't taken, or you can't gain knowledge in one dawra, in one lecture, one conference. Not in 1 month, not in 1 year, not in 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 10 or so on. Like in what knowledge does, what these years do is they build your malika. They build for you your understanding of fiqh. That's why you'll find that if you was to be asked about a certain issue back in December, and you're asked about it now, many of you may give a different fatwa, or many of you may have a different opinion. That's what knowledge does. You will find that the scholars, given a certain fatwa during one period of time, and then after years given a different fatwa, طبعا with regards to the masail of fiqh. And we mentioned obviously there's reasons for this differing. Maybe a hadith, maybe the scholar deeming a certain hadith to be authentic when in reality it isn't authentic, and then he only comes to know of the weakness of that hadith after a certain period of time. So obviously if he knows this hadith is weak, his next fatwa will not be based upon this weak hadith. And that is how to attain knowledge. Studying it through from book to book, and also using the explanations of the scholars, especially those scholars who are firmly grounded in knowledge. And only then and only then will a student of knowledge be upright upon al-ilm, tariq al-ilm. Knowledge isn't just the books, halal, haram, tahid 7 ayam or tahid 6 ayam, or your time of masih starts then or finishes then. La. Ilm has adab and etiquettes. If a person doesn't preserve the etiquettes and the adab of ilm, you will find that their knowledge has no barakah. Their knowledge has no barakah. I remember some years ago in the kulliyah, in the uni, there was a student who, the subject was hadith. The subject at the time he was studying was hadith. And the sheikh was, he was a very knowledgeable sheikh in the ilm al-hadith. And then there was a student who used to attend the class. In every single gathering, every single lesson, he would always argue with the sheikh. And he would say to the sheikh, yeah, but such and such said this, and such and such said that, and Imam al-Tirmidhi said this, and the hadith of this is da'if, and this is based upon this and that. And I remember one time the sheikh said to him, yeah, oh my son, this is the opinion of many scholars, and Nawawi of such and such and such. And the kid, he said, leave Nawawi, forget Nawawi for a second. I'm referring to you. He was talking to the sheikh in a very disrespectful manner. Now this student, Allahu A'lam what was in his niyyah. It seems that he was trying to get shuhra, and he was trying to be known. Such and such is strong in knowledge, wallahi mashallah. Look how he's debating with the sheikh. He makes the sheikh look ignorant. In reality, qadarullah, there was about 60 students in that class, including him. 59 of those started to degrade him. 59 of those. Because he did not preserve the adab of al-ilm. When you try making yourself known, or in a class, and you try debating with the sheikh to try showing his ignorance, that shows that your ilm doesn't have barakah. That's why it's important for the student of knowledge to read the books that deal with the adab and the etiquettes of seeking knowledge. From one of the best books in our era that has been translated is Hilyat Talib al-Ilm, the adornments of the seeker of knowledge, by Shaykh Bakr ibn Zayd rahmatullahi alayhi rahmatan wasi'ah. And there are many explanations on it. So preserving the etiquettes and maintaining firm or staying firm upon seeking knowledge. And that means attending every single class. That means reviewing the lesson before the class. So if you know that today's class is going to be on Hayd, you should have looked at the bab of Hayd beforehand. That's once. And then during the dars, you're going to study the chapter. Then when you go home, sometime during that week, you should definitely review what you've studied. That's 3 times. And then before the exam, you review it again. That's 4 times. If you carry on reviewing every lesson 4 times, you'll find yourself not having to look at a kitab. You'll find yourself having a certain grounding of ilm, being well grounded in ilm, being able to connect this mas'ala to this mas'ala, connecting this question to that question. Because the chapter of fiqh is wasi'. You can get different questions from every single angle. Like in referring it back to certain principles that you've memorized and understood, it gathers all of that for you. That's why if you look at the haram, when the scholars come to the haram, or when they're in their lessons, the scholars such as Shaykh Fawzan rahmatullah alayhi, they don't use a kitab. There's no kitab in front of them. Not once will you find, look into all of the clips that you can find of Shaykh Salih hafidhahullah, not once does he have a book. That doesn't mean that he doesn't use a book, like it means he's memorized the book, or memorized everything that is in the book. Sometimes the reader, or the shaykh that would be reading the text for him, will make a mistake in the text. And the shaykh says, a'id. And then he'll go back and he'll realize that he has made a mistake. Na'am. So na'am, and also taken from the scholars. Because from the etiquettes of ilm, is that a talib al-ilm, the young shab, can be guided to a Sunni scholar, a alim from the ulama of Ahl Sunnah. The Salaf, rahmatullahi alayhim, they used to consider that as a ni'mah and a blessing. A ni'mah and a blessing. Because the scholar of Ahl Sunnah, the alim who's a Sunni, he'll guide you to the haqq. In general, every single person will guide you to that which he's upon. The person who's dealing drugs, he'll want you to deal drugs. The person who commits crime will also want you to commit crime. So everyone, according to their methodology, according to their madhab, will want to guide you to that path, especially if they are sincere. So what does that bring about? It brings about that the alim, the scholar, from the scholars of Ahl Sunnah, will guide you to the Sunnah. Will guide you to the Sunnah. Will guide you to the Salaf and the understanding of the Salaf. The meaning of you saying I'm a Salafi means that you refer back to the Salaf with all of your issues. Even your etiquettes. Even the way you memorize the Quran. The way you learn fiqh. The way you learn aqeedah. That you refer back to the Salaf. Some of even the ta'rifat, some of the definitions. Shaykh al-Fawzan hafidhahullah, if the definition isn't a definition that the Salaf have mentioned in their books, then he would say leave it. Use the definitions of the Salaf. Even though that definition may be correct. Even though that definition may be 100% correct when defining Tawheed, for example, or Ashirk Billah. Like you will find that he's connecting you to the Salaf. So it's very important that you, as a student of knowledge, you know who the scholars of Ahl Sunnah are. And you know that when you're referring to them for every single mas'ala, for every single issue. And the scholars have levels. Imam al-Sa'di rahmatullahi alayhi was the teacher of who? Imam ibn Uthaymeen. Imam ibn Uthaymeen is the teacher of many scholars. So the students of Ibn Uthaymeen are like the grandchildren of who? Imam al-Sa'di rahmatullahi alayhi. The students of Imam al-Albani are the grandchildren of who? Shaykh al-Albani. The students of Imam ibn Baz, the students of Imam ibn Baz are the grandchildren of Imam ibn Baz rahmatullahi alayhi. Imam ibn Taymiyyah rahmatullahi alayhi, how many children did he have? None. Imam al-Nawawi rahmatullahi alayhi, how many children did he have? None. Imam Muqbil rahmatullahi alayhi, how many children did he have? How many boys? None. He used to say to his students, Antum abna'i ya tullabi. The students of Imam Muqbil were his sons. Shaykh Salih al-Fawzan hafidhahullah, how many children do you think he has? How many? None. Hafidhahullah. Lakin when we're talking about Masail al-Aqidah, who is from the foremost scholars that are mentioned? Shaykh Salih al-Fawzan, hafidhahullah. When we're talking about fiqh, Masail al-Ahkam, al-Hayd, wal-Nifas, wal-Siyam, who are the first scholars that are mentioned from the first scholars that we refer back to? Naturally. Not because we have affiliation to Shaykh Salih al-Fawzan. There's no relation between Ahlul Sunnah and Shaykh Salih al-Fawzan, hafidhahullah, or any of the other scholars. And just because I say Shaykh Salih al-Fawzan a lot, it's only natural because everyone loves their Shaykh. Lakin, all of the other Shaykh, all of the other Mashayikh are beloved to every single person of Ahlul Sunnah. So from the etiquettes of a student of knowledge is that he remains firm upon seeking from the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah wal Jama'ah in every single mas'ala. So if you see a person saying Masail al-Hayd, we can go back to Fawzan or Albani, lakin Masail al-Jihad, Masail al-Kibar, big Masail, we can't go back to them because they are being forced. So on. Ala kulli hal, from the etiquettes of knowledge is that a person seeks knowledge from the scholars of Ahlul Sunnah, and the etiquettes are many, and it's important that you refer back to every single one of them.